take y'all's input very seriously when you come in new. Clarice, who's here tonight, was in the class in the fall, and she's the one who said, you know who we should hear is Ben. And we were like, okay, cool, let's do it. And so that's why he's here tonight. So it's a really great way to get involved in the chapter, find out how we work, and also to make a difference in how the class itself goes. So thank you, Clarice. All right. Ben Pfeiffer is the founder of Firefly Conservation and Research, a conservation and education organization dedicated to protecting fireflies and their habitats across the United States. He's a recognized public speaker, field researcher, and science educator whose work focuses on Texas and North America firefly species. Ben's research centers on documenting firefly diversity, natural history, habitat requirements, and flash patterns, much of which has never before been systematically recorded in Texas. He's actively involved in the search for rare and possibly lost firefly species, work that contributes to a growing understanding of firefly conservation priorities in North America. He collaborates regularly with organizations such as the International Union for Conservation of Nature, Firefly Specialist Group, Xerces Society, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, the Nature Conservancy, Master Naturalists, land trusts, state and local agencies, and private landowners. Ben studied biology at Texas State University and is a Texas certified master naturalist. He's a sixth-generation Texan. He has spent much of his life exploring Texas ecosystems and working to conserve the state's unique and often overlooked biodiversity. All right. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you, Kara. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, thank you all for having me. And thank you for asking to have me come talk. I do a lot with the Master Naturalists. And so it's an honor to be a part of y'all's class today. And so we're going to have some fun tonight. And we're talking about fireflies. How's that sound? Great. Awesome. Good. Cool. Well, I am recording it, so save the dirty jokes for after the recording. But thanks for the introductions. My name is Ben Pfeiffer. I am a Texas Master Naturalist as well. I'm the Lindheimer chapter in New Braunfels and graduated 2016. So been involved for quite a long time. I started Firefly Conservation and Research back in 2009, and we didn't officially become kind of an organization until about 2014 or so. So I've been doing this for some time. I absolutely love it. It has become a passion of mine. It's not my main job, but it is something that I do regularly. I do about 18 talks a year, and I travel for conferences and do a lot of different things throughout the state. So it's kind of fun. Okay, so just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you've got a phone, just put it on silent. It's just helpful in case it rings. And then if you've got any questions during the presentation, I know we're going to have some people from Zoom that might ask some questions. So we're going to save the Zoom questions till the end, but you guys, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and then we'll try to answer it actually during the presentation. So this isn't a learning environment. So, you know, if you've got something that's just burning that you want to know, just raise your big hand. Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about fireflies tonight. My hope is by the end of this presentation, you're going to have a much better understanding on the ecology that occurs with fireflies, and then also have a better ability in order to identify them come firefly season this year. So what are fireflies? All right. It's not working. There we go. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Okay. So what are fireflies? Fireflies are beetles, and they belong to what's called the family Lampyridae. They belong to a very diverse group of species, and they all are beetles in the order Coleoptera, and there's about 400,000 species worldwide. You might know fireflies by many names, depending upon where you grew up. You might know them as lightning bugs or fireflies or that glowy thing over there. A lot of times it's kind of where you're born. So if you're in the deep south, lightning bugs. If you're up north, fireflies. But in Texas, we can call them whatever we want. Uh, all fireflies belong to the family Lampyridae, and they all have very shared characteristics. As juveniles and as adults, they bioluminesce, which is pretty awesome. And this is a feature that distinguishes it between other different beetle species. They have a pronotum, also called a head shield. So throughout the presentation tonight, I might refer to a head shield or a pronotum. And this is what I mean right here. Why this is distinctive is that there's sometimes like a black spot here that occurs. And with firefly researchers, sometimes we look at that and that will kind of help us to ID in terms of different types of species. So we're looking at a certain morphological feature there. Now, all fireflies have relatively soft, elongated bodies. Sometimes we call these squishy beetles. And the reason we call them that is because if you've ever been a child and you took a firefly and you smashed it in your hand, that gooey, glowy stuff kind of runs out. So they're kind of this squishy beetle category. They are all about 5 to 20 millimeters long. So to put that in context, 5 millimeters long is about the size of a grain of rice. And then 20 millimeters long is about an inch. And so fireflies here in Texas can get up to about 25, even 30 millimeters at the far end of the range. Now, if you're down in South America, for example, like in Argentina or Ecuador, some fireflies down there can get up to 3 inches. So if you imagine hiking around in the jungle at night, a 3 inch long firefly lands in your head, it's kind of terrifying, right? Yeah, I wouldn't want it either. This is a little bit of the firefly anatomy. And why this is helpful is that you may be going out into nature and trying to identify bugs on your own, whether it's through iNaturalist or other reporting methods. And there's a lot of other beetles and insects that look like fireflies. So the reason why is because fireflies are poisonous, and a lot of other species will try to mimic the coloration of a firefly. Now, if you have a good insight in terms of like how their structure is, then that's going to be helpful in terms of determining whether it's a firefly or just some other beetle species. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into what they're poisonous to. Yeah, in just a second. But let me just point out some like just major features to just kind of keep in mind. We've got the head shield here. In between that's called a scutellum. It's a hard bony plate. They have two what are called elytra, which are basically that protect their flight wings, and 2 eyes and 11 antenna segments, 6 legs. So if you see anything that's got more than 6 legs, it is not a firefly. uh, on the elytra here, we have something called an elytral margin, and this yellow kind of coloration here is helpful because some species don't have that coloration there. Some could be completely all black. So just these little things kind of add up to help us identify what a firefly is. Now, this is a female firefly and a male firefly. You might be able to tell some differences automatically. If you're a female, it looks like you have one light organ, and if you're a male, you have two light organs. Does anybody know why that is? Yeah. Yes, that's true. That's true. But why would a male just have more light organs than a female? Yeah. Okay. Actually that's pretty good. Yeah. Same. Okay. All right. That's not it's getting there. She needs to conserve her energy in order to lay eggs. And so as she mates with a male, her abdomen is going to get larger and larger and larger. And so in some ways space, but she doesn't need to flash as bright as a male. Males are interested in flashing to females, and they want to be bright, and so two light organs kind of makes sense. Whereas females, all energy is kind of devoted to as many eggs as possible. Now, this is the firefly life cycle. Most people think that fireflies, as adults, live. That's usually the form that they see. But the reality is that fireflies as adults only live for about 3 to 4 weeks. So not very long. They spend most of their life in the larval state right here, about 1 to 2 years. Now, off to the far right here is an example of a firefly larva. It kind of looks like a prehistoric kind of hard, like these hard bony plates here, and it crawls along the ground. Up to the left is an example of a pupa. And curious thing about pupas for fireflies is where they live oftentimes indicates what they look like. So if you live in the leaves, you're going to look like a leaf. If you live and you pupate in the trees, you're going to be skinny and narrow, so you can fit in between pieces of bark. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, off to your far right is a picture of a larva, and it just hatched from an egg. Now, you'll notice in the end of its tail there, it looks like it's kind of like a lighted region. So this goes back to those shared characteristics I talked about earlier, that as juveniles and as adults, they bioluminesce. Firefly habitat. So fireflies love like warm, humid areas and forests, fields, marshes. Riparian corridors are their primary place that they live. And a riparian corridor is the interface between the land and the water, that like narrow strip of vegetation that occurs there. And it occupies about 1% of all land types. So it's like one of the rarest types of land that we have, and it's the primary home of most fireflies. So when we talk about firefly conservation, we're oftentimes focused on an interest in that specific piece of land right there. So fireflies occur all over the place in a lot of different habitats. They primarily like humid, kind of moist areas. Anywhere there's a lot of dampness, but some occur in drier areas and more xeric areas. In Texas here, we have fireflies that occur in some of the cedar breaks. And so the reason for that is the leaf litter that comes off a cedar tree is very small. And so if you're a burrowing female or a piece of larva or a larva and you need to burrow into the ground, into the soil, it's very easy to get in between those little pieces of cedar. So fireflies depend on cedar trees in Texas. So they just don't soak up all the water. So yes. Oh, that's a great question. So she asked if the larva here is about the same size as an adult firefly. A lot of times the larva is smaller. And then, when they pupate, really that's a reorganization of body parts, essentially. And so it's a good way to kind of think about it. And so, yeah, some larvae can get pretty big, but mostly they're a lot of times smaller than the adults. Yep. Yeah, they're gonna. It depends on the genus and where they're gonna live. Some live in the soil and burrow into the soil, and they pupate in the soil. Others will live in the trees, and some are in the leaf litter. And so, different kind of habitats where they occur. That's a great question, though. Okay, so we've got about 45 kinds of fireflies here in Texas, which is pretty awesome. The next highest states are Texas and Georgia, with about 50. And then some of the states near Tennessee and those, they've got about 45 or so species too. So we're very fortunate that we have such incredible diversity here in Texas. And part of the reason that is because of the amount of ecoregions that we've had here. And I'm going to get into some of the reasons why, take you all on a little journey shortly. But there's about 2,400 species worldwide. That's a tremendous number of species for fireflies. They occur in every continent except for Antarctica, so that's pretty awesome. And there's about 180 U.S. species, and there's new species being found all the time. So that's kind of the fun part is to hunt for new species, and people are finding them. Um, Texas has some of the highest biodiversity in the U.S. Now, how did we get so many species in Texas? Well, maybe because everything's bigger in Texas. That's why. Had to add that in. Uh, but in the long ago, but the not so far away, um, approximately 6 million years ago in the Miocene period, in the age of the dinosaurs, I'm just kidding. 6 million years ago? Y'all didn't catch that? There's no dinosaurs 6 million years ago. All right, let's delete those dinosaurs. All right, find out where they really came from. Okay. Oh, in the 6 million years ago, in the age of the megafauna. All right. So we've got giant armadillos up here, four-tusked elephants, this weird bird thing, zebras, and then I don't know what this is. But at that time, firefly species in Texas began to take shape and gave rise to all of this. So all of these species listed up here are all fireflies that occur in Texas. Isn't that incredible? So we've got all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and different antenna. These larval form guys, these little fireflies here. We've got some with some kind of little, kind of cute little eyebrow-looking antennas. So just a lot of interesting diversity. So 6 million years ago, in the Miocene, was a warm, wet, temperate period in Earth's climate. This was ideal conditions for speciation to occur, and most of our species occurred or gave rise during this time. And so, curiously, though, for a long time, the common knowledge was that fireflies actually came down from the Northeast. And the reason we thought this was because, well, if you ever go up to the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic and see fireflies in July, there's just millions of them, right? Well, I guess since they have so many, they ran out of space and they must have migrated down to Texas. Someone actually did some DNA research to kind of figure this out. And her research was really fascinating, I thought. And so that's why I put it in here. So we assumed for a long time that, fireflies came up from the Northeast. But in fact, what the DNA research was that the opposite was the case, that fireflies actually migrated out of Texas into the Midwest and into the Mid-Atlantic. And so what we have here in Texas is kind of the original gangster fireflies, the original ancestor fireflies, the OG fireflies of the United States. And so they migrated out of Texas into the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. So what we have here is very special, and it means that it's a lot older than what occurs in some of these popular areas. So that's pretty fantastic. Yes, you had a question? She asked about whether all adult fireflies fly or not, and the answer is no. And we'll get into some of that. So anyway, this research here was pretty fascinating, and that makes what we have here is pretty special. Now, curiously, something I talked about in another class was that can anybody guess what the main month of the year that you see fireflies in the Midwest or the Mid-Atlantic? August in the summer. Okay. Well, do you know that you can see fireflies in Texas here for every month of the year except for maybe January? Yeah, if you're lucky. So, curiously, I had a thought. I said, well, if the fireflies that occur up, in the northern part of the United States came from Texas, and we've got fireflies that kind of occur in every month, then originally fireflies probably flashed in all months of the year. And it wasn't until they migrated up to like more colder climates that they changed, and they only flashed for 2 weeks at a time and had very shorter cycles. So at one point, 6 million years ago, fireflies just flashed all the time, every day. Cool, huh? All right. So these images I put in here because they're really fascinating. This is actually fireflies in amber, and you can see. Actually, this is like kind of a light organ here. This is the only image I've ever been able to find of a firefly in amber, so that's pretty neat. And curiously, there was some other research done too, looking about how fireflies gain the ability to flash. And originally, they used pheromones, and then they gained the ability to flash in order to warn off predators. And it was only later that they used flashing in order as a form of sexual communication, interestingly enough. So, as I said, 6 million years ago, all other species kind of were created, and some of our own unique endemic species kind of like split off from each other. Now, we've been talking about flash patterns a little bit, and to most people, the flash of a firefly looks the same as another, but the reality is that each species has its own distinct flash pattern. And the flash can vary in a lot of different ways. So if it's hotter out, they'll flash a lot faster. This threw me for a loop a little bit when I got started, because I'd go to areas that were a lot colder, and I'd be like, man, these fireflies are so lazy. They're just flashing so slow. What is going on? And I come back here to Texas, and it's just like constant flash, and it just turns out that, well, fireflies here in Texas flash a lot faster. So that's something to keep in mind when you see one. The color of a flash can vary too. You can get a yellow-green kind of color here, or sometimes even like an amber color, depending upon the genus. Fireflies can also synchronize their flash. Also the number of flashes, and then the interval of time between flashes. So some fireflies might flash once a second, some might flash every 4 seconds, some might flash even longer than that. Time of night that they're active too. The fireflies that come out in the early dusk, which, if their fireflies are coming out tonight, in an hour or so, they're only going to operate for about 45 minutes to an hour. But other species will come out later in the night. So I'm going to show you a video. Can someone get the lights actually? Because this is one we'll want to turn the lights off for. Okay, so I'm going to show you a video, and I want you to guess where in the world this is. All right, yeah, someone got it. So this is synchronizing fireflies that are synchronizing their flashes. Not East Texas, but good guess because of the trees. Not Tennessee, but very good guess. That would be like my guess too. Not California. They don't. Northeast. No, I'd think south. Think south of the border. Mexico. All right. Grant got it. Okay. This is in Mexico. It's about 2 hours southeast of Mexico City, in Tlaxcala. And a region, it's a mountainous region that has this species of fireflies that synchronizes flash in this incredible display. It's caused a lot of good ecotourism in the area, but a really great kind of more extreme example of some of the flashing behavior out there. You can turn the lights on back now. Thank you. Has anybody been to Tennessee to see the fireflies flash? You have? Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's great. That's great. You didn't have to get on the lottery either to see them. Yeah. For those that don't know, if you want to see the synchronous fireflies in Tennessee, you have to get on a lottery, and then they randomly pick you. And some people can be on there for a long time, like 5 years or so. And when I've been up there, you usually get two stories. You get someone that's been on the waiting list for 5 years and complains, and then the other person that just got on it and it was like, I just got it this year, and then yeah. So I asked a Firefly researcher that was from Tennessee if I should go and see it, and she was like, absolutely not. And I was like, don't come to Tennessee. And I'm like, all right, calm down, calm down. But she's like, there's better places to see the synchronous fireflies, like Georgia and stuff. I was like, okay, all right, all right. All right. So what? How do fireflies flash, and what is the mechanism that makes that happen? There is a recipe for bioluminescence, and it's really the combination of two main substances, the luciferase enzyme and luciferin inside of the luciferase enzyme. You can think about it like when fireflies breathe in oxygen, it charges up the luciferin molecule here. Um, that gets it into a highly excited state, and then it releases photons of light when it relaxes down. So it needs oxygen, I think magnesium. It goes through different structure changes. So this will turn into like oxyluciferin. Um, and the structure of this molecule dictates on what the color is. And so slight differences will make it a little bit more orange, or can make it a little more yellow-green, just depending. But yeah, just think about it like the flow of oxygen, and fireflies regulating that flow is how they flash. If you ever get really close to a firefly abdomen where it's flashing, or a head just flashed, and you look really close, it looks like miniature lightning, because the oxygen spidering through the different photocytes. It's very, 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 very pretty. Yes. So it's no, it's related. It's from Latin, basically. Yeah, yeah. In terms of like fire or spark, essentially. Some of the names of genuses of fireflies actually have like roots in Greek, and Latin, and some like there's a genus called Aspisoma, and it literally means in Greek like something like to spark or something, which is yeah, kind of neat. Okay, so how do they choose a mate? what's the whole business of flashing in the first place? Why did they do it? Well, originally fireflies, they gained the ability to flash in order to warn predators off. It wasn't until later in their evolutionary journey that they used flashing in order to communicate with mates. Um, but what's happening is that males are broadcasting to females, and females are looking and responding to kind of interspecific variation in male flash timing. In other words, they're basically looking for just different types of males that tickle their fancy, essentially. um, so, can anybody guess what a female firefly is like in male fireflies? Brighter flash, okay. More often, all right. I gave this presentation one time, and there was a lady in the front, and she said a sense of humor, and I thought that was hilarious. It was really good because you could say a lot of things, but that's pretty good. So yeah, a sense of humor. Maybe they do or not. I don't know. But what females like actually is longer flashes or faster flash rates. And so these are things that signal to a female increased fitness. And what she's looking for are robust males that are going to give her eggs a better chance of surviving. There's some things called nuptial gifts that males give to females. And it's kind of sugars and obviously sperm in order to fertilize a female, but these are things that help this female survive a lot longer and her eggs to survive longer. So there's actually there's a woman that did this research and she wrote a book called Silent Sparks. Interestingly enough, so it's a good book. Okay, so let's talk about how fireflies are helpful. They really act as nature's pest control. They help to control slugs, worms, snails, pest insects that might otherwise get out of control. Uh, they all larvae are pretty predaceous. They consume everything in their path, and so they love earthworms, snails, that stuff like I mentioned. Firefly larvae are predatory specialists. So some larvae like to eat snails, others like to eat worms, and oftentimes it depends on where they live. Now, they act as a really good indicator for the health of an environment. They're on the forest floor, so they're going to come in contact with pollution or contamination a lot of times. They're kind of the first to get interact into disturbances on the land. They're also used in medical studies, and so food safety, cancer research. There's a new thing that I heard about where researchers were looking to explore how bioluminescence could be used in like low energy communication. So think like fiber optics, except that the light that gets sent is generated via chemical as opposed to some other kind of method. So that's kind of neat. So maybe we'll see that one day. Food safety. I think it relates to, she asked about food safety and how fireflies help with that. I'm not an expert on that, but I think it's related to if there's pathogens or some kind of contamination found in food or something like that. They'll use the luciferase luciferin reaction in order to light up to signal that like there's something wrong. I'm not sure completely on that one. I know with the cancer research, they've used luciferase, luciferin to see if like drugs activate certain pathways, maybe something like that. Okay, so our firefly is disappearing. This has been in the news a bit the last like 5 years or so. You've probably seen it. I do interviews for this often, and I have a kind of unique way of talking about it. Fireflies are disappearing because we want it that way. And it has to do with incentives that contribute to habitat decline. And so a lot of times it's short-term gain or profit motives, essentially, that contribute to a lot of decline in habitat quality. And so when I say that it's because we want it that way, it's because it's true. Now, in this room, collectively, we may not want it that way, but elsewhere, that's the case. So, the situation, though, is that 14% of North American firefly species are classified as critically endangered, endangered, or vulnerable. In Texas, we've got two. We've got one that's kind of endangered and then one that's vulnerable. And there's this consensus among public and scientific communities that there's a whole lot less than there used to be. And so it's kind of an abundance issue. While we may not be declining in certain species, we're declining in number. So what we do know is that there's a really urgent need to protect their habitat specifically. So why are they disappearing? One of the causes is pollution and loss of riparian corridors. So this is an image from San Felipe Creek in Del Rio. It's an area that's gotten polluted over the years, and this is like from a cleanup effort, and it just shows that the issue really well. So you can see the trash and the pollution, but behind it, you can see this is a kind of a river cane called a rondodontax or carrizo cane. It's an invasive grass from I think. Africa or Southeast Asia. But the reason why it's bad and it occurs in our river systems is that if you're a female down here on the bottom on the ground and a male is up here just flashing to you, you can't see each other because of the dense vegetation. So that's kind of one of the reasons. Habitat loss and degradation is another one. And this is kind of talking to why that is. It just occurs all where we are. We have a burgeoning population in Texas. Specifically, I'm talking about here. It's a problem everywhere. I put this screenshot in here because I'll just mention it briefly. It's because it's kind of where we've gotten in terms of some conservation. It's now gotten to the point where developers basically say they're going to do subdivisions or clear land with or without the consent of cities. And used to, it would be like maybe we'll just try to be a good neighbor, but now it's like we're going to do whatever, no matter what. That's kind of psychopathic in nature a little bit, right? We're going to do whatever we want. We don't care how it impacts. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now, unfortunately. And you just have to mention it because it is a reason for decline. Light pollution's another one. And the reason this is bad is that white light kind of broadcasts in all colors, essentially. And it washes out the color of light that fireflies flash, which is kind of a yellow-green spectrum. It's kind of a weaker spectrum. And so light pollution can be negative for fireflies, especially. There's an interesting story to tell with this. In China, about maybe it was 6, 7 years ago, they started a park for fireflies. I think it was somewhere near Shanghai or Beijing, and the city thought it would be a great idea to do a firefly park. So they got a lot of money together and they built this really beautiful park. And the idea was that lovers could be hand in hand and walk down the path as fireflies flashed. And that's just charming, isn't it? Well, what they did was they went out to the mountains and they collected tens of thousands of fireflies and then brought them back down to the city and released them into the park. So the day comes when they're going to open the park and they're all excited. And I don't blame them. It sounds pretty cool. Open the park. All sorts of people came. And then what happened is they started walking down the path and no fireflies. And they're like, what happened to the fireflies? Well, it turns out in the paths that they created, they were like kind of winding through, they put big street lamps up. Yeah. So the fireflies didn't want to flash into those street lamps. So fortunately, what that happened was that gave rise to some research on firefly-friendly lighting, and they kind of came to like amber lights. But we know the credible scientific research, and I have some colleagues that have done it, is red light's the best. Incidentally, they end up killing tens of thousands of fireflies for this. Yeah. So, but kind of neat story. Other thing that's also harming fireflies is pesticides, but specifically broad spectrum pesticides. And you might have roaches in your house, and you might have other pests. You might need to control those, and it's okay to have to do that if you need to do that. Really, the issue is broad spectrum pesticides being sprayed in all of your land and all of your habitat. That's the problem mainly. And so if we're just a little conscious of how we spray or treat, or we tell pest control companies where we want them to spray, that's going to help fireflies out in the long term, as opposed to letting them choose how to do it. So that's another reason why fireflies are declining. Here's some ways that you can help. If you have some habitat for fireflies, or you know of a place that has fireflies, you can assess the soil health. And poor soil is going to equal poor habitat for the food that fireflies need to survive. And so you want snails, and you want little worms, and you want other little insects that firefly larvae are going to eat. And so you can make amendments to your soil and then lightly till your soil. I gave this presentation to some master gardeners one time, and somebody got like kind of upset, and they're like, "You said till their soil. How deep did you say to go?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And so lightly till your soil. Yeah, they were serious about that, and I understand. I understand. Avoid broad spectrum pesticides. Turn off outside lights. You can also advocate for local policies. That helps as well. Dark sky policies. Um, have y'all had any dark sky education? Not yet. Okay, you're going to enjoy it. That's really fun. And this kind of goes back to that a little bit. Um, Ways that you could protect habitats. One of the first things is to get to know your local species. You have in Boerne here one of the most amazing firefly habitats over at the Cibolo Center for Conservation, just down the road. We're going to talk about some of the species you're going to see there. Most of the time I give this presentation, a lot of times I'm just guessing what people have, and I don't know where they live, but since I already know it's just right down the road, I can tell you exactly, and some of these photos came from there. So that's pretty cool. So get to know your local species, support conservation efforts, educate your neighbors and friends, and then consider conservation easements as well. These are good things to help protect habitats. And then just an example of like an action item that you can do is that during like May to August, this is the primary time when firefly larval development happens. And so this is a great time not to disrupt the surface level soil. And so if you want to bring in lawnmowers or earth movers or anything that's going to disrupt those areas in like especially near a river or something, don't do it. And you might wait until after that time in order to do that stuff when they're going to be able to survive. These are just some examples. I put these slides in here because y'all are master naturalists, so y'all get the pro version of the Firefly talk today. Some areas have mapped out Firefly sanctuaries. This is a place in Greenbelt, Maryland that did it. Um, you can also plant natives to help preserve soil moisture. So fireflies thrive in places with really abundant moisture. Native plants help retain that moisture. And so any job that you're going to do in order to encourage native plants in the area is going to help fireflies. And letting leaf litter accumulate, eliminating invasive species, avoiding shredding or mowing on riparian areas is a great idea. The lawnmower is one of the biggest threats to fireflies in a lot of ways, especially for people that mow right up to the water's edge. Um, and then heavy mulch layers are really poor firefly habitat. This is kind of a reminder. While mulch does do a good job doing like keeping in moisture and stuff, in general, really super heavy ones, like where nothing can get into the soil, kind of doesn't help much. Native plants help because they help provide habitat for females and for larvae, and they also provide operational cover for adults. So native plants do a lot of things for fireflies in a variety of different ways, and primarily for females and larvae. Now, this is a list of plants that are good for fireflies. This list is on my website, so feel free to take a picture of it. A lot of these plants do well in like wet and non-wet locations, so they're not all dependent upon moisture. And there are some that you might see in here that are a little more kind of, yeah. Um, these all things just contribute. Now, things like Eastern gamma grass, this is going to be a plant that actually saw a bunch actually on my way in here to Boerne from New Braunfels. It liked all the water, and it's going to need a little bit more water. But some of these other ones don't need as much. So, yeah, inland sea oats is a really great one. Side oats grama is great. I mean, a lot of the natives work really great. Any asters too are good. Frog fruit, frostweed, those kind of things. Buttonbush, sycamore are great. So just some awesome plants that help out. Reducing light pollution is another way you can help. Specifically using like red LEDs is a really great way. Change your light bulbs, reduce decorative lights, and then kind of install motion sensors. This is an example of some like signage for habitat protection. And these are ways that other people are using to like protect like particular areas. Now, the Certified Firefly Habitat program is from my organization, and that's a great way that I started. When I started this program years ago, it was just a really wonderful way in order to like protect habitats, because a lot of times people hike to areas or go to places, but they don't know fireflies are actually there because they're there during the day. And so the Signs Act is a really great way in order to protect habitat you want to protect in your area, and then others. This is a park that also did some like interpretive like signage in terms of a life cycle. And you can do signage to protect riparian areas too. This is actually in New Braunfels. And curiously enough, this was actually not habitat done for fireflies, but it turned out to be really good habitat for fireflies. There's an endangered species of beetle back here called the rife beetle, and they had to, like, since it's federally endangered, they had to do this in order to protect it. But it turned out to be great firefly habitat, incidentally enough. And I don't know any firefly that would not like to live in a place like this. So. This is the certified Firefly program, and let me check one thing real quick. This looks like it turned off. Okay, I guess we're back. I don't know what happened with that. Um, so certifying your habitat. Is anybody certified here? Anybody have a certified habitat? Okay. Not yet. Well, this is a great way in order to help fireflies, and it's a self-directed program, and it serves 4 different areas. So, firefly larvae and adults, providing cover for them, increasing your plant diversity, reducing your light pollution, and restricting your pesticide usage. These 4 main things help contribute to increasing fireflies on your land, and they do this in a wide variety of ways. So, well, I guess okay, since GoPro like timed out, don't buy a GoPro. They're completely annoying. I regret ever doing that. So it looks like I won't be able to record the whole presentation. Bummer. But okay, so now we're going to go into some Texas fireflies. And I'm not going to go through all of these in this list. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. But I just wanted you to see some of the, yes. Yeah, that's a great question in terms of size limit. No, a firefly habitat can be as small as like this like square area up here. So 8 feet by 8 feet. They can really like just small populations can occur in like areas and just dependent upon it. So you could have half an acre, quarter acre, up to 120, 10,000 acres. So yeah, it's not limited by size, but good question. Okay, so Photinus species of fireflies are the most commonly encountered genera in Texas. These are going to be your Big Dipper fireflies, Photinus pyralis, and they occur in both the spring and the fall. And this year, it looks like we're going to get a good firefly year. It sounds like. Last year was kind of okay. The year before that was really bad, and the year before that was really bad. Last year was like kind of patchwork kind of fireflies, is like I like to call it. I go to different places, sometimes the same place every year, and sometimes there'd be fireflies there, and other places where it didn't get rain, no fireflies. So we got really good rain this last week, and I think that's going to make for a really good year in May. This is what Photinus pyralis looks like, and you'll see it's kind of the most common species in Texas. Our form lacks the black spot here that you'll notice on its pronotum. And the reason why is if you go back to the earlier in the presentation, this is the original ancestral form of what Photinus pyralis became kind of more northern of here. So our form, the older form, lacks the black spot. And genetically, it's about halfway different than its sister up in the north, interestingly enough. Now, it's known for making a J-shaped motion, so it flashes upwards, and it flashes every 4 to 6 seconds or so. And a really hot night in Texas, if it's 90 degrees, you're going to see this guy flash even quicker, up to like 3 seconds or more. Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a form of coloration, and I can't say for sure exactly what it's for. Um, they all have a distinct shape, and it probably has like changed now through time. Some of them vary quite a bit. You might have the same species, but it could be like a bar or an anchor or a T or just a single splotch. So it varies quite a bit. Photinus concesis is our Texas endemic species. It flashes every 2 seconds. And it only occurs in Edwards Plateau region. So that's pretty cool. Just a small area. Now I'm going to show you some video. This is in Texas. Okay. If I can rewind it. So this is Photinus concesis flashing, and you might be able to know there's some things that kind of stand out at you. Can anybody guess? Because we saw the other video. What's kind of similar between the two? Synchronizing. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So that's cool, right? So in large numbers, we can have synchrony that occur in our firefly populations here in Texas. And nobody knew that until I started documenting it. And I sent this video to a researcher at Purdue University who ran it through a supercomputer. And he compared it against synchronous fireflies in Tennessee and in Mexico. And it came back that this was indeed synchrony. So that proved it. That was cool. Now we just have to have a really good firefly year, though. Now this is in Violet Crown Trail. The videos doesn't is not coming through with the projector here as well, but there's actually a trail here. And if you want a easy place to go hike to see fireflies, Austin and Zilker Park is a great place to do it too. But y'all have much better places here in Boerne. This is Photinus stellaris. This is one of our smaller fireflies, about 5 to 9 millimeters. And it has all black wing covers, and it flashes about once a second or so. Now, I'll notice that its light organs for the male are extremely large for such a small firefly. And the females, this is what a female of this species looks like. Isn't that beautiful, that coloration? So she can't fly, and they're really small fireflies. And so she produces hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of eggs. And so it's kind of a one of those strategies where they produce a lot of individuals because a lot of them end up dying in order to survive. Now, these are fireflies that do burrow underneath of cedar trees. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier in terms of plants. And it's because if like what I mentioned earlier, you can see how small she is and how it's easier for her to get between those little pieces of sticks or from cedar trees and like little pieces of grass. This is a size comparison between that endemic species. They're both endemic, but you can see the kind of difference between how they look very similar, but the sizes are very different. Photinus demissus is our what is called our two-step flasher. And I gave it this name because it the way it flashes, it will flash sometimes every 2 seconds, or it'll do two flashes, I'm sorry, two flashes a second, and then sometimes it switches back to one. And so it'll be like 2 1 2 1, or sometimes 2 2 2 2. So it's kind of like the two-step in a way. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So it kind of it made sense. It's a really cool firefly. It occurs in areas that have consistent moisture. So you don't really find this in a place where it's going to dry up. And it has females that look a lot like this too. So kind of test your knowledge time. We could take a little break. What likes to eat fireflies? Birds, okay. Bats, no. Not not okay. Maybe nothing. Yeah, they're just invincible. Maybe there is something that does like to eat them. Armadillos? No. Another beetle. Close. All right. Spiders. Yeah. And so a spider will weave a web on a fence line a lot of times and set a trap. And then the firefly comes along, lands on the web, and then interestingly enough, there was someone did a research last year that looked at what was going on here, and it turns out that spiders do this little microsurgery on a firefly, in order to make them to blink. And so when they blink, it attracts other fireflies to the net. Isn't that cool? Don't know how exactly they do it. Yeah. And I've been tricked many times. I'll go and look at fireflies and I'll see something different that's on the fence and I'll be like, that's something different than what I'm seeing, and I'll go straight to it and it's a firefly and a spider's web. So the spider tricked me too. So that's kind of cool, right? And since fireflies are poisonous, what spiders do is they liquefy their insides so they can digest them. So that's how they kind of counteract that. Yes, they keep the light going. Yeah. I don't know. I don't. I need to look at the research a little bit more and how they exactly do it. But there, what we do know is oxygen's still able to get in and power the reaction. So the spider's doing something that's kind of letting them kind of do this SOS signal essentially. Now, Photurus fireflies are the other genus of fireflies that you're going to see in Texas. These are our predatory fireflies, and these are fireflies that will eat other fireflies. And sometimes we call these the femme fatale fireflies. And they like to mimic the flash patterns of other species to kind of lure them in. And females are the ones that mainly do this. Males do not. And so a female will mimic the flash pattern of another species, lure the male in, and then bite its head off and then eat it. And so, yeah, pretty terrifying, right? And so, yeah, if these fireflies are the size of house cats, we'd be scared to go outside at night. I promise you. Yeah. Now, the reason why they need to do this is that photinus fireflies, these are fireflies that make a compound called lucibufagins, and that's a fun word to say. And what that is they're kind of a steroid compound that's kind of like similar to a cardiac glycoside, similar to like a medication you might take to help with like heart issues. And so that compound these fireflies do not make in abundance. They make another compound, but doesn't make them as poisonous. So they need to eat other fireflies to acquire this compound in order to give to their eggs, so their eggs don't get eaten, essentially. Yeah. There was I haven't told this in a while, but there was a researcher that did all this study, and he had a pet thrush. And what he would do is every day he'd bring home bugs and feed it to the thrush. And out of like 1,000 bugs, there's only three of them that the bird didn't eat, and one of them was a firefly. And so that's how he figured out he was looking for novel compounds. This is back in like the 50s or 60s. And so that's kind of how they figured out what make fireflies poisonous. This is Photurus catrinae, and this is our endemic species here. And this is a firefly that is in a complex of other species that occur throughout the United States. But this is our unique species. We've got about four of these and probably more. And they're really fun to catch because they make a lot of flashing when you catch one in a net or something. And they're really predatory. This is an example of a photo from Valverde County at Devils River showing these fireflies and kind of some of their behavior flying over the treetops here. Now, this is our other form of species in the genus Photurus. Photurus bill brown eyes is one you can see at this Cibolo Center for Conservation down there at the path. If you ever go there and you go down those steps and you go past the prairie field on the right, and then you get to where the river is, and if you go right, that's where you're going to see these. If you go left, you're going to more likely see more Photinus species. So this year in May, go right and go down. It gets kind of dark at night, but that's a great. I saw great these fireflies last year were fantastic there. And so I suspect this year they're going to be great again there too. Now they do a double flicker flash, so it's a really fun flash to watch. And they fly kind of slow too. And so these are also known to synchronize their flash. In other parts of the country, people get on lotteries to go and see these fireflies flash. So you don't have to do that. You're very fortunate you don't have to get on a lottery to see them flash. And just a couple more. These are some of our other weird firefly species. Now, this is Microphotis. This is like a West Texas species, and it's about the size of it's like a gnat, basically like a fly, and it does glow, but good luck seeing it. And most of the time, you only see these when they're like get attracted to a light or something. Um, but what they do is there's glowworms on the ground that they're looking for females, and then they will kind of glow a little bit, but it's pretty rare to see them. Pyroctomina is our other genus here. These are ones that you might see in the brush country, and these are individuals that you always see just as a single individuals. Photinus texanus, this is one of our other endemic species. Those are here also in the park too at Cibolo. And then Pyroctomina vexillaria. This is one of the lost species. It's listed as one of the 100 lost species in the United States, and I'm on the active hunt for it. I'm the only person that's ever seen it flash, so it's kind of weird, kind of like thing to have. It's absolutely beautiful, and so I end up getting the name Amber Comet because it does an amber flash and it like streaks up like a comet. It's very cool, very beautiful, very bright too. It would take your breath away when you see it. It's very rare, extremely rare. I've never actually caught one live, even though I have seen one. I wasn't able to catch it, and it only occurs documented wise in Comal and Valverde County. Could be elsewhere. So pretty rare. Now, this is Pleiotomus pallens. You can just see these kind of distinctive, like kind of eyebrow-looking antennas. And this is a non-luminous. Adults are non-luminous for most of their life. And these use pheromones in order to kind of communicate with each other, detect others. And then lastly, this is Aspisoma. This is a weird type of firefly that is very more common in tropical areas near in Mexico and in Central America. And uh, this was cited in Cameron County. There's a bird researcher down there that did this and posted this on Ag Naturalist about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's really only been seen 4 times since 1930. There used to be a population that occurred in Monaghan sand dunes, but at this point, I think it's probably functionally extinct because of the aquifer declines, declined all the wet seeps that it survived in. But down in Cameron County, we have this genus as well, and yeah, so the kind of the value of iNaturalist here, and that's it. You can support firefly conservation by certifying your habitat. These are my contact information and in my website. Feel free to reach out. And you can scan the QR code if you'd like to help make a donation or certify your habitat. And then we also just launched some new t-shirts. These are super cool. I worked really hard on these. The first of its kind Texas Firefly t-shirts. And so wanted to do a proper job. And so they're printed on comfort colors, which everybody loves, and you can buy them on firefly.org. Makes a great gift. And just go ahead and open it up to any questions. Yes, in the back. Okay, so yeah, Cleese asked a great question about areas that were impacted by the floods, especially like, along the Guadalupe, right? Blanco area. So I actually was recently talking about this with someone. Actually, let me ask y'all, what do y'all think? Like, areas got flooded. Y'all are naturalists. You have to start thinking about these things. What do you think is going to happen to the fireflies? Okay, maybe they'll come back. Yeah, I agree with you. I might come back. Yeah. Decline for right now. Okay, yeah. 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 I think all of those are right. Okay, yeah. 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 Yeah, the droughts had a big contributing factor too. Yeah, so all of y'all said all those things were right. They're going to be less of them. They're going to move. And yeah, so they're more gonna tolerate is a good way to say it, actually. They're gonna tolerate varying declines. So here's what happens when a situation like the Guadalupe happened and then Blanco, they will come back, but the first fireflies to come back are the ones that are more tolerant or adaptable to certain environments, and that's gonna be the main type, Photinus pyralis. You can kind of think of it like the coyote of the firefly world. Yeah, and then so that's the first thing to come back. Any fireflies that were there on the land have gotten washed downstream. However, though, any fireflies that were in the upland areas that got a lot of that rain and that moisture probably benefited. So what you're likely going to see is fireflies in the upland areas are going to be flashing, but anything down at the water on the Guadalupe this year, come July, whatever, not going to see much at all. Now, they make some mistakes when they come and they try to restore some of that habitat in a lot of ways. Yeah, so people are like shaking their heads. Yeah, and they make it want to look like a park essentially, and if you go to I live in New Braunfels. You go to the Comal River or the Guadalupe through there, it looks like a drainage canal. you know, like it's like nothing really grows here because it's all concrete. So some areas are going to be like that, but there's going to be other areas where they're not going to do that, and it's going to come back. So it will. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take a really good rain year. Now, 2018, 2019 were the best firefly years in Texas in 30 years. I know 2018. Um, yes, yes. Best. It was absolutely incredible. That's where I saw that amber comet firefly. That's so rare. So we'll have another one of those, but it's going to be, we're in a drought cycle right now. So hopefully El Nino comes back and we'll get some of that. But as the vegetation starts to get back a hold of some of those areas and the riparian areas, is when they'll start coming back. Yeah. Yeah. We've always wondered. So we're like, there's two trains of thought. One, their pupation cycle is just so fast because it's so that they like in the spring they had it, and then they went through all of the summer, and then they like hatched again into the fall. But really, what it is I think it's more of just like overlapping cycles. And since they occur in more months, it's less predictable here than it is like in the Northeast, where it's like exactly July 24th, there's going to be 10,000 fireflies. They can predict it up there down to the weeks based on modified corn growing days and the amount of sunlight the ground gets. Here it's a lot more difficult. And so likely though what happens is like if we get rain in like winter, that actually will help like mean like a good firefly year into the spring, because what it does is what I've been able to figure out is that it allows the fireflies to weather the cold months a lot better without them dying essentially. So we had a really like mild winter, and then we had some rain in December in some of the areas, and then we had rain in here in April. So it's all leading up to be pretty decent, I think, this year. So yeah, yes. Yeah, she asked a good question. If they just stay in the same area, so they'll fly up to maybe 2 miles, and I've heard reports even up to 5 miles. Now I don't know if someone took like how they measured that, but I have seen fireflies in the back country in Valverde County one time where they should never have been, and they must have flown from a river area, and that was miles, at least 3 or 4 miles, and so they do travel. A lot of times, what you see is they'll fly down the river, especially the more like able ones, like Photurus, that I showed. Like this guy right here. This is one that will fly long distances, as well as Pyractomina right here. Now, Photinus fireflies, however, though, stay a lot closer. These guys are really small, and so they're going to stay in a pretty confined area. Um, But you know they cover some territory, and sometimes what you see in like areas on the Guadalupe is that you'll see them. They fly from downriver, upriver, and some stay in the same area, but others will fly in the search of a female. And sometimes they'll reach like canyon walls, and that basically prevents them, like channels them. So yeah, great question. Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, so they're going to stay in the ground for a year to 2 years based on the environmental conditions. They get good rain, stuff like that. The soil's got to warm up to a certain like temperature. It's got to get to like 70 degrees, 80, 90. And so that's a good trigger for them in a rain. And then they'll emerge, and after they've pupated, basically, and then they will fly in search of females. Essentially, as soon as they come up, they're looking for males are looking for females. Pretty much all the ones that you see flying are all going to be primarily male, and there's some females in there, but mainly males. So yeah, so that's the cycle. Basically, they will mate, and a female will mate sometimes with multiple males, and then she goes and lays eggs. And the image here is actually a picture of a female that's like kind of already mated, and so it's a very healthy one. She's got a lot of like eggs already like attached, and so she's about to go lay eggs. Otherwise, it'd be a lot shorter, the abdomen regions. So, yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they start flashing this weekend. Because it's already like end of April. Yeah. Last year there was some flashing in February. I heard, a talk I gave. So yeah, they're flashing now. I saw some 2 weeks ago in Valverde County. I saw Photurus and some Photinus species flashing. Oh, that was in Landa Park actually. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of in the area towards the like where the spring is, in the spring fed pool. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, go check out. Yeah. Yes. Oh, okay, Zoom questions. All right, great. Yeah. Hey, sorry for I did not know. Oh, okay. That's a good question. So they asked where most species in the world like happen to be. Um, I would say there's a lot of species in Southeast Asia, but I don't think it's like the epicenter of diversity necessarily. That's going to be kind of more into Central America and South America, more equatorial, like during equator regions and stuff. Oh, where they unearthed? Okay, so that's a good question, and that was what I was talking about was Texas, yeah, specifically. Now, obviously, the continents had changed a little bit, and so things are going to be different 6 million years ago. But that was our region there. Other places like there's fireflies in Europe, for example, and other stuff. They've gone through their own cycle as well. But yeah, our story with North America, South America, is connected in that area there. Okay, so they asked, are they poisonous to humans? Well, if a dog eats one, it's gonna spit it right out. And so yeah, if you ate enough, it'd probably be poisonous. But I promise you that if you ever stuck one in your mouth, it's extremely bitter tasting, nasty. You're not gonna like it. It's not gonna kill you, but yeah, yeah, they are poisonous. You don't want to eat one. But if you pick one up, they do something called reflex bleeding, and you'll have these little like white droplets that come off the sides of their head, kind of in this area right here, or sometimes on their abdomen, underneath, and it's just sticky. And I've had it on me. It doesn't hurt anything really. Yeah, so plant for fireflies. That list that I mentioned is a really great one. And just you start there. I'm going to be publishing some new stuff on like habitats that people can build for fireflies. And they're going to be kind of like a little bit of a log pyramid, essentially. It like stacked logs with like some branches coming out. And you can put these along fence rows, and it's really like mimicking log structures in the wild that you might see, except in a little bit more of like kind of a aesthetically pleasing form. And it's just anything, but I'm still working on that. And so, but when I do that, it will get in the presentation and get on the website. Um, Yeah, a water feature will help. A good leaky pond helps out a lot. I had one at my house actually, and it was because I bought a house that had a pond, and it just was kind of leaky, and so the trees grew and everything. But it attracted fireflies, believe it or not. Now I had to take it out because the water was getting so expensive, and it was becoming a maintenance nightmare. But yeah, a pond can help definitely. Yeah. All right. Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. I always wonder too, like you go peek at a bush and you like pull some leaves down. Are you in there? Hello. Um, yeah, what are they during the day, fireflies? So they're gonna you've seen those large grass clumps like along the rivers and stuff. What they do is they're gonna fit themselves in between those grass blades, or they're gonna go underneath a log, or they're gonna hide in a piece of like bark or something like that, and that's to avoid desiccation. And so, good luck trying to find them because they hide pretty well. But when you see them emerge, you'll see them sometimes that they get underneath like the base of a grass clump, really way down in the soil. And so you'll see them kind of emerge from the grass, but you're like, where did they go? It's really interesting. So yeah, they'll do that during the day, and that's why the vegetation's so important. All right, no more questions. Cool. Well, thank y'all very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Okay, a couple of quick announcements. I wanted to make sure I told you guys we're in Boerne for the chapter meeting Monday night, right? Did I say that or did I just think it? Okay. And then sign up for food in Kerrville. And then the other thing I want to tell you guys is if you want to see the really cool fireflies at the Cibolo, you should go look at their night hike schedule. It is really cool. And they'll take you down and walk you through all their firefly areas. And so that's my plug for the Cibolo night hike. A lot of them, they have like adults only, which is really fun. So anyway, check that out. All right, I'm done. See you guys later. I'm not done. Time out.
Hey, what? Just one more thing. Whoever is participating in the service project, we look forward to seeing you on Saturday, behind the bookshop next to the library at 9 o'clock. Thanks.